Today's episode of On the Ground Parenting is made possible by the generous donations of our listeners. To learn more, look in the show notes or listen to the end of the episode.
Welcome to On the Ground Parenting. This is brought to you by Muskoka Family Focus, the Parent Ed team. My name is Sandy, and with me is
Sam
and Kelly.
Welcome, everyone. Well, today's podcast is brought to you by the letter F, or other four-letter words, or swear words, bad words, adult words, whatever you may call them. Let's talk about the times that maybe your children used language that you, or maybe society at large, did not feel was appropriate. What comes to mind for you?
Oh my goodness, this is such a topic at my house because my oldest son really enjoyed profanity a lot and it became problematic at school everywhere we were. So I told my younger son that he was just far too young to use profanity. Well, this year, turning 14, turning 15, he has decided that he is indeed old enough now to swear at will. So there are times when I have to encourage him to use less sentence enhancers and to be aware of where you can socially get away with things like that and where it's not appropriate. Yeah, it's a big one for sure.
When was the first time you experienced one of your children swearing? So you were caught off guard, Kelly.
I think it was when Rowan climbed in the back seat of the car and for whatever reason, perhaps parented a certain parent who shall remain nameless and said, "Oh, those are shitty gutters."
And what happened next?
He repeated it 3 more times, and then I just let it go and made a mental note because Rowan is a kid, again, like the parent who shall remain nameless, who loves a good reaction out of people. So I did my best to not give him a reaction because I have a theory that kids test a lot of words to see what reactions they get. Like, we're talking about swear words, but the other word in our house that they would test drive is "I'm bored." And I think that word in other families made their parents jump. But I simply said, "Oh, that's an interesting word. What does it mean?" So it's playing with this reaction piece for me.
Yes, I can remember with my daughter, we were down on a dock and she had been exposed to fishing, and so she knew some fish terminology. But so we were standing there, and some people were noting the fish, and my daughter looked over and said, "Look at all those little bastards!" And well, we were just stunned. And then the next thing that came out of her dad and I, we just guffawed because we were so we were startled and we were trying to hold it all in. It was, a moment when we were just not in our best form. But my daughter she reacted, not that she realized that she had said something that was inappropriate. She just thought we were remarking like, "Oh, she's found all these fish. Isn't that wonderful?" So we just let that lie because it was obvious that she had no connection with what she was saying. And we talked with her later on about what the real name of the fish, the bass, that she had seen. So that was one of our incidences. And what about when you've been somewhere and your kids have been letting loose? How have you handled that in public?
Tricky. I think it depends on where I was at in terms of my skill set in the moment. And if you mean let loose with words, we certainly have had discussions about appropriate places to say certain things. But if you mean behaviorally, there's certainly, I can remember one time, and it was just a 2-year-old tantrum thing. I was single parenting. It was my older son's birthday the next day. We had to buy things at the grocery store. There was no one to help me with that. It was me or it didn't happen. And so I literally walked around the entire grocery store with my little 2-year-old tucked under my arm, screaming his head off, flipping out. And my older son was pushing the cart. And I would say, okay, we need that, we need that, we need that. And he just kept putting everything in, and nobody was rude or anything. But I just kept thinking, like, pity the people who decided that now is the time to come grocery shopping. Like, we're going to get out of here as fast as we can, but we don't have another option. And I think that that was a real moment of realization for me that I had grown as a parent, because previously I might have been very upset that this was happening and quickly rushed out of the store with both of my children, which sometimes is the appropriate choice to make. But in that moment, a few minutes of other people's discomfort was what was required to ensure that my child, who was I think he was turning 8, was going to have a decent birthday party the next day. And so I just thought, we're just going to go with it. But previously I would have wished for the ground to open up and swallow me whole. Like, it just would have been horrifying to me that my children were behaving in such a way out in public. But by the time it came to him, he was the 4th child I had been raising. And it was just like, yep, he's upset. He's had a rough day. He's being a 2-year-old, and we will survive this. And so will everyone else.
I think the riding it out is something, as you mentioned, it was child number 4, and certainly you come into a little more awareness and ability to not be so reactionary. Something that came to my mind with this particular topic, too, about some kind of outburst from your child. Years ago, I worked at the location, it was called Parent Child Drop-In Center. And there was a child there that was learning how to speak, and they were on top of the slide and they wanted their parents' attention. So, caution everybody, I'm about to swear if you want to, turn your volume down right now. But anyway, this child was talking about the fuck, the big fuck. Did everybody see the fuck? And the first time parent was absolutely mortified. You could just see the color in the face, the agitation of the body and the gasping for air. Trying to figure out what to do and how to handle it in that moment. Because it was an environment with everyone as a parent, then there certainly was a circle of support for that parent, and just helping them get through the moment that, yeah, there are those times when the child isn't actually intending to use a word that isn't acceptable or, might not be appropriate. They were trying to just speak, and their language development, the sounds that were coming out were not matching what they were trying to say. How about you, Kelly? Any other incidences that have come to mind?
I can't think of specific ones in that sense, but I was thinking about our tendency, and I learned it from another parent that I really appreciated, was just sometimes to say the obvious. Like, that language, when your kids are of a certain age, is some people find hard on their ears, some people find offensive. There's a social contract that in certain areas, we use certain words. In other areas, like at home, you can use different words. And just trying to help them understand that I'm not trying to shut down what they want to say or what they're trying out because it's a me issue, but it lands differently in different contexts, and it reflects, like, they will create a different relationship if they throw around some words than if they throw around other words. And sometimes I think we don't do a good job of being really direct and clear with kids about why our word will create a certain reaction in a certain environment.
Oh, creating that certain reaction. It's like an explosion has gone off. The ripple effect or the chain reaction. And for a child to see this unraveling of the parent, it can be confusing. It can be fulfilling. You're right, Kelly. Like, who knows what that underlying need is? Is it to explore, like pushing the boundaries to test a little bit? I really like the phrase about connection before correction. And I think that that has supported me in some times when maybe I thought, because of feeling like I was being observed or scrutinized, judged, that I needed to, shut them down, so to speak. So the connection before correction. And I think the story comes from Sam or Kelly, you may remember this, from How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, or Listen So Kids Will Talk. I think it comes from this program where the teenager comes home and is frustrated with the teacher, and says the teacher was an a-hole or a bitch or something like that. And it's very, dramatic about it. And initially, the parent was saying, don't talk like that. We don't use language like that. So they were correcting. And what the description in the parenting program was that we need to find out, it's important to find out the underlying need or what else has gone on there and to allow them to continue to talk. So if we shut them down, if we correct them, we're not going to hear the rest of the story of maybe how they felt in the moment. Maybe they were feeling embarrassed. Maybe they were feeling not supported or whatever it was, and that they had a need to be heard in a different capacity. So I really like that expression. And it doesn't mean that we're going to ignore it. It means that we're going to, in another moment, revisit it after they've calmed down and after we've heard the rest of the story. Then later on, we can say, hey, remember when you came home and you were really feeling upset and you used a certain term to describe your teacher? I'm wondering what else you could have used. So just a gentle way of bringing it back around again.
I love connection before correction, and I've used that so many times when advocating for my children within the school system and just in life in general. But certainly, it's something that I try to keep front of mind at home as well. And one of the things I'll often say if my children are being very expressive with their language, even as teenagers and young adults, because it isn't the best way to connect with people, I will say something like, wow, it sounds like you have a lot of big emotions around that. Well, I said that to Ryan in the car this week, and he rolled his eyes and he's like, oh, Mom, I know that you think that I should be using other words right now. Yeah, I do. But we can talk about that later. Feel free to vent as you need to, but like there's appropriate places. And I mean, in the car with me is a safe place to vent, absolutely. But he doesn't enjoy reminders that it isn't a great thing to do in other places. And Ryan has recently started going to a regular classroom instead of a withdrawal classroom. So he's in a special education program and he hasn't spent much time in a regular classroom. And so right now he's working on feeling out, like when he's in his other classroom, when he's one-on-one with an adult, if he needs to express himself and he's venting, they're probably not going to be terribly upset with him if he lets a few profane words fly. But you can't do that in the classroom when there's a whole bunch of other peers around who are observing your behavior, and perhaps you're setting a bad example for other people who might be influenced by your behavior. So it's an interesting learning moment, and he's so logical that he understands all of the reasoning and he doesn't enjoy reminders about it because I know, Mom, but he definitely is working through that. So it is pretty fascinating. Just there's so many social rules which are tricky to learn as like for anyone, and kids have so much to learn.
We all do.
Hmm.
That connection piece reminds me of Mary Shidi Kurchenko, who wrote Raising Your Spirited Child and Kids, Parents, and Power Struggles, which were also some of my favorite books as I was trying to develop these skills of being a parent. And I think when I heard her speak, she actually sings to the tune of Happy Birthday, which I won't do. Stay connected to your child, stay connected to your child, stay connected, work together. And to this day, I sing that when I'm trying to focus on let's connect, let's connect. What's going on with you? What's hard for you? When what I want to say is, how did you not do that?
Come on, Kelly. I think everyone really wants to hear those words to the tune, though.
I do for sure. I think that
Yeah.
Kelly just teases
Happy
us all the
birthday.
time.
Come on now, Kelly. Get into it.
Stay connected to your child. Stay connected to your child. Stay connected, work together. Stay connected to your child.
Love it.
Woohoo!
Beautiful.
Thank you. Really believe that we needed to imprint that tune and those words. So thanks so much for singing that out.
I agree. I appreciate that because that will stick in my head a little bit better in these moments in the car when I'm like, why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, it's 20 years later, and I still sing it in my head, usually for my kids, occasionally maybe for my husband, and occasionally for other people I'm working with. Like, let's start with connection. I see you, you've got big feelings, there's lots going on, and then maybe there's a different path or a different way to handle it.
Yeah. And I think that with kids as well, that overwhelming, the state of being a kid, we're not always, and I'm speaking as a kid myself, remembering I couldn't always articulate what I wanted, or I may not have known what I wanted, or I may not have been the right environment for me to be able to say what I needed to say. So when there is an adult around me who is, here comes that other term in there, who is co regulating, regulating themselves enough that they can be present with me to co regulate, then I really and truly feel that connection. And I feel supported, validated, and maybe I just need that little bit of time to be able to spit out what it is that I'm trying to figure out what's going on inside of me. And I think, Kelly, you and I were talking about a certain Disney movie that we would like to show some clips from that and maybe dive into that.
Yeah, just that idea as we got into that inside out and how if we acknowledge feelings, they go away. And there's so many amazing little clips that we can watch that movie and pull out. And I often even refer to that. I was just at a couple of days of work talking about challenges and leading change. And some of it comes back to those simple things of acknowledging the first step is to acknowledge the emotions in the room, whether we're adults leading some big project or whether we're a 5-year-old who's come back from a bad day at school and whips his backpack down with glee.
There's a group that I'm working with right now, and we were breaking it down so that what are my physical needs and are they being met? And what are my mental needs? Are they being met? What are my emotional needs? Are they being met? What are my spiritual needs? Are they being met? And with all of that, then next is coming into emotional intelligence of what am I aware of within myself? And once I'm aware of that, then the next pillar would be how am I able to manage myself with all of that knowing? And then that kind of work. So, working from the inside out, then I can begin to look at the environment around me, the people and the situations, and can I apply what I'm learning about myself and have that compassion for them too, so that I can come into relationship in a different way. So, it's a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong exploration.
You know, you're hitting on those pieces that we keep coming back to, or I keep coming back to, because I think it's so important to think about as we build these skills as parents. We're not going to just get to use them as parents. We get to use them in our workplace. We get to use them where we volunteer. Those same pieces of, I need to know what's okay with me, what my relationships are like, that building from the inside out grounds us in our parenting, but it also grounds us at 8 a.m. at the office as well. And I love to tell folks the more we invest in our parenting skills, the better we'll be at our job. Sometimes when we work on these skills at our job, we can also bring them home to parenting. And that reciprocity of building our skill set so important.
It's such a great reminder that we have relationships everywhere and our world is based on relationships. Like everything that we do and every interaction we have is a relationship of some sort. So it is really, it's so important to remember that what we learn here will be applicable there for sure, wherever here and there may be.
In our parenting program, Make the Connection with it was with your infant to 1 year old, we talk about how we are born relating and communicating. We have this innate instinct that we want to connect with other human beings.
Because literally without it, we would die. And that's the thing, right? Like it's key to our survival to be able to connect and communicate with other human beings.
Well, a few years ago, I think it was the UK government announced a minister of loneliness because loneliness kills more people than heart attacks and cancer and a bunch of other things. And I think we are going to be most challenged to figure out how to make connections in our neighborhood and wider than us, especially as our kids grow up.
That's a really good point. One of the programs that has just been launched at Gravenhurst Against Poverty, where I do my volunteer work, is a friendly phone call program for folks in our community who are isolated and feeling lonesome. So it's something that people seem to be very aware of, which I think is a great step in addressing it for sure.
Well, we talked about the ways that we're engaging in some of the ways that may be more challenging for us as parents. And so, when you're faced with a moment with your child, whether it's a word that is an expletive that you want to delete or it's behavior, what rises up from the ground that gives you strength?
When I'm at my best, I can bring humor to the situation. and have a lot of fun with it. The thing we laugh about is Rowan swore to me that he was not playing the computer game, that I thought he was playing, and I can't remember the rest of the context. It was a number of years ago. And so I said, I believe you. You're not playing the computer game, but somebody is. So I'm wondering, might be time to call the police, get it fingerprinted. And he's like, I don't think that's necessary, Mom. I was like, well, I'm sometimes home alone. Like, I'm sometimes sleeping here alone. And if somebody's sneaking into our house and playing computer games, I need to know. Like, my safety is at an issue. He's like, okay, it was me. But we both laughed. But it was so fun to get him to be like, Rowan, I know, without getting into it. And so when I'm at my best, I can use humor and just have fun with situations.
How about you, Sam?
For me, one of my biggest strengths is my apparent calm. Even if I feel like a squirrel in traffic on the inside, I really draw strength from trying to remain calm externally so that I can help co regulate. And I'm starting to come to the conclusion, as we all probably do at some point, that co regulation does not end when your children get to be 18. It continues, and not just with your children. So it's a skill that we use in partnerships in life as well, whatever those partnerships may be. So I think when I see someone else in chaos, I try to be the calm. And I hope for reciprocity there. So sometimes when I'm in chaos, somebody else might try to be the calm. And hopefully I won't get annoyed with them if they do.
Yeah, for me, when I think about being on the ground and continuing, it's kind of like you want to keep the car going, you want to keep running or whatever it is. I think actually what first came to mind when I put that query out there, because I didn't know I was going to put that query out there. But what came to mind in that instance actually was humor too. And I know that there are many times when we revisit, so the experience with my daughter on the dock or other experiences that we've had and experiences that were medically challenging. But now on the other side of it, we actually bring humor into it. And that helps us to see it in a different light. And I think it helps us to sort of release maybe that hold that anything had on us as well, too, and to move forward without any lingering, I'll use the word small t trauma. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us on the ground parenting and just putting it out there. Keep an eye out for Eugene Levy. We want to talk with him about what it's like to be a grandparent. So, grandparents, rally. We'll see you the next time.
On the Ground Parenting is a production of Muskoka Family Focus's parent education program. It is made possible by the generous donations of listeners like you. If you'd like to make a donation, sponsor an episode, or just ask a question of one of our hosts, go to linktr.ee/On the Ground Parenting. On the Ground Parenting is produced and published by Red Juice Studios. To learn more, go to redjuicestudio.com. Thanks for listening.